Welcome to You, Me and IT, the podcast taking us behind the title of some of the leading individuals in the IT channel. I'm Karlton Gray, UK and Ireland Channel Director at Schneider Electric, and in each episode I'll be speaking to the leading figures in one of the UK's most prominent industries. My guest in this episode is someone who played a major part in getting me into the role that I'm in today. Welcome Louise McCrystal, Vendor Alliance Manager at Insight.
Hello. That's very kind of you to say that, by the way.
Well, it's true, isn't it? It's how we met.
Yeah.
I just want to start by going backwards and forwards. So, firstly, can you tell us a bit about what your role is? So, I think Joe Public would say Vendor Alliance Manager, and no one really knows what a Vendor Alliance Manager is.
No, I mean, even when I speak to my family and friends, they haven't got a clue. So, really, the role of a Vendor Alliance Manager is you basically manage the relationship with strategic vendors. So that's who I manage. I manage strategic vendors within Insight, and you really it's there to drive the mind share of across the sales teams to make sure they are updated with all the latest and greatest of your vendors' messaging. Making sure you're responsible for the P&L. So in terms of revenue and rebates, making sure you're maximising on all the partner programs so that Insight get the best in terms of profitability from those vendors. It's all about relationships. You know, I think I've done this role for 30 years now, so a little while. But it's all about relationships as well. You need to make sure that you have honesty and transparency with your vendors because it's not about just selling the vendors to your sales team. It's about selling Insight to those vendors. So making sure they understand the capabilities of the company and the opportunities that can bring with it. So it's quite a complex job. Somebody said to me a few years ago that it's similar to being a conductor of an orchestra, because you're trying to conduct so many different parts, because you're engaged with sales, you're engaged with purchasing, you're engaged with finance, you're engaged with all different levels within the business, sales directors, team managers, etc. So I wouldn't say you need to be a chameleon, but you need to be able to adapt yourself to be able to talk to different departments and understand their stresses and their challenges and their objectives they're trying to achieve for the business, so that you can make your request or your conversation more appealing to them, if that makes sense.
Where did it all start for you? So where, almost from little Lou growing up in whatever it was to where are you now?
I mean, I think, I didn't leave school, saying I'm going to be working in IT. It wasn't. I
don't think anyone did, to be fair.
Really?
No, yeah.
Really? No, I think my first role actually in the channel as we were, it was a very small reseller called Halcyon Computer Supplies.
Okay.
And I think there's actually still people in the channel now that remember it. Started there as a buyer. I was there for 5 years. But then I went to do a job called panic buying at Phoenix. And that's where you had to get things on site. It was like a service contract we were buying for. So I did a year there. And then I think the biggest sort of move into the channel for me was going to Ingram Micro. I think I was there for 13, 14 years. And it had a big impact because
I stalked you on LinkedIn as well.
yeah. But I think, that was really influential. And I think we both know distribution, obviously. So I think for me, Ingram's was a bit like a college. I think anybody that goes to distribution, there's a speed that you work at that I think I hadn't seen before. And I learned a lot in that time. I started as a buyer, but, made my way through to being a head of category. And there's lots of people at Ingram's that helped me with that. I made lifelong relationships, friends with people. And it was a big chunk of my life. So I really enjoyed my time there. But I think I felt that I'd hit a ceiling at Ingram's. So I then decided to, I'd been approached actually by Misco. And I'd been approached for, about a year before I decided to sort of, make the decision. So I went to Misco for 5 years and then it went bust. I wasn't sure if that was related to me going there, but I don't think it was.
When you went across to Misco, why?
I mean, the whys, it's difficult because I think, there's a lot of, I remember when I handed my notice in and Matt Sanderson, who's I think he's the VP of Ingram now, had rang me to say, I think this is when he was in Australia, had said, I thought you were a lifer. Because I think when you join Ingram's, it is like a family and you do feel, and I did feel like partner furniture. I knew the systems, I knew the people, I knew everything about it. But I felt that I needed to go a bit further in the career, and I thought that maybe leaving Ingram's to maybe go back at some point was a good option. So I wanted to expand my experience. Moving into somewhere like Misco, that was a well-known reseller at the time. Everybody knew Misco, all the vendors, etc. So I think that was part of my reason to try and improve my experience and increase my skill sets. Really, that was one of the reasons I went.
So obviously Misco, great place at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it went under, bought out by another company. What was that like? Because
it was really hard. I mean, I think I'd never been in a position where I'd worked for a company that had been made redundant, or where the company had sort of gone into liquidation, or whatever. And I think at the time you started questioning your abilities, because all of a sudden there's 400 people on the market looking for a job, and I worked with some really good people at the time, and you're thinking, oh God, I'm gonna have to sell myself. And even though a few of us stayed behind when Misco went under to sort of help collect the debt, as it were, it was just quite a worrying time, because I put myself out there, but it was a confidence thing, and I'd had a couple of offers, but those offers would have taken me outside the channel, and I didn't really want to do that. I felt that I'd worked that long in the channel, I'd created lots of relationships.
Yeah, a brand name. It was, you walk in, here's Lou. Like, do you know what I mean? It was.
Yeah. So I didn't want to start again, if you know what I mean. So after that happened, I decided to stay in the channel, and I think that's almost when the next chapter started for me in terms of both personal and professional, and what my next steps were.
So we're into PCM.
Yes.
That was the next level.
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah.
You touched on personal and professional.
So I mean, I think for PCM it was really interesting because it was a startup, so there was no getting around the fact that it wasn't going to be hard work. I think a lot of people from Misco had ended up going to PCM, so I knew that I wouldn't, I'd know a lot of people there, which would have made it a little bit easier. Donovan obviously gave me, he believed in me and gave me the opportunity to be a vendor director. And for the first year, it was amazing, because you had, for the first time really, I had the ability to make decisions that would affect the company in terms of the direction and everything else. And through that time, there were acquisitions that were made by PCM. I think Provista and Stack were a couple of acquisitions that were made that, gave us a compelling offering in the UK. But a year into that role, personally, I got some pretty tragic news, which at the time, my fiancé at the time got terminal cancer. So it was all a very strange time, because it meant that my focus, and I'd always been some would say a workaholic.
Yeah.
So I think up until that time I was working late. I'd always been quite the person that would never have a lunch, or we'd work until late, etc. And overnight, when that diagnosis happened, it was my focus had to change.
Yeah.
There was no question. It just had to change. But I think that what was really interesting, well, not interesting, but the channel came together for me. The amount of people that, including yourself, lots of people sort of reached out and just let me know they were there. Donovan did a fundraiser to try and give us some funds to give us a holiday, to make memories and stuff. But it was at that time that, I was at the peak of my career, if you like, then to just almost forget all that and focus just on him. And then a year later, sort of, we were told we were going to get acquired, and I think the stress of all of that, I think it was a really difficult time. So through that, obviously the acquisition was made, and I moved to Insight, all at the same time as sort of managing the situation.
How long was that period?
I think it was about probably 6 to 8 months, 6 to 9 months that process took. Funnily enough, because I was seen as a director, actually when Insight made that acquisition, for me, I wasn't really somebody they wanted from a director point of view. And actually, they ended up keeping me. They were going to make me redundant, but I think at the time, when I sort of told my story and ended up crying when they made me redundant, I then had to sort of say, I told them the reasons why I broke down, but just said, look, I understand, etc., etc. And the next day I got a call, just saying, look, we do want you in the business, we just can't offer you a director role. we want to offer you something else, which is the vendor alliance manager role. So that was good to hear at the time, because I had all these worries about how I was going to pay for the mortgage and everything else. And then obviously that happened, and I think Insight were so supportive because they knew my situation, and they allowed me to work from home. Then we had COVID, so it was just a really strange time, to be honest, because I wanted to keep impressing Insight because they'd been so good to keep me, but at the same time I was very conscious that I had my fiancé in the other room, dealing with what he was dealing with. So it was a really strange time, and obviously we couldn't have people round. We couldn't have family and friends come round because of COVID, etc. So so that was a difficult time, and I think it changed me as a person, but it also put my career to the back foot, which I'd never had before. I'd always been somebody that always put work first, which was stupid when I look back, because you've got to have that life.
Family is more important.
100%. So it did put things in perspective. So that was a challenging time.
Do you think that stopped or hindered you, or
did it hinder me? I don't. I think I'm starting to put it this way. That was, funny enough, it was nearly 4 years ago that happened, when Matt actually passed away. And again, Insight were really supportive. But the following year, I then had a major operation. So dealing with grief and then having a major operation, and it took me a while to recover from that. And I'd say it's sort of the fire wasn't in my belly anymore for career progression, or making sure that people knew who I was. And I had so much stuff going on in my head that it wasn't the bottom of the pile, but it just didn't have that. It didn't have that fire that I used to have. And I'd say that really over the last couple of years, it started to come back.
Yeah.
Maybe the last year or so, it started to come back. And I'm finding myself now getting that. I mean, it's a very small fire, but it's starting to build again.
Yeah.
And the world we live in from an IT perspective has changed so much. When we started our, careers, we were selling print.
Yes.
Or buying print. And
there's nothing wrong with print, by the way.
There's nothing wrong with print.
No.
I'm not saying that for me, print for me, print's still part of my world.
Yeah.
So, but print was obviously a bigger part of our world back then. Yeah. And when I was at Misco, luckily for me, I'd had the chance to head up the infrastructure business managers. So I got into the world of HPE and APC and people like that, and started to see the world differently, that it wasn't just about print, that there was servers and storage that made everything work, and networking, etc. So I think that helped me see, that helped me grow a little bit more in terms of my knowledge, etc. But now it's even more different, isn't it? We live in a very different world when it comes to IT.
Yes, very much so. I think just where you are, from where I remember you bubbly, you're still bubbly, we laugh, we joke and all of that sort of stuff, but it's changed. Yeah, and I think you are coming back to that old Lou again.
Yeah.
But obviously you went through that, and it's awful. There's no other way of describing it. It was awful, and you almost became a little bit introverted, there was a change, and obviously everyone would have a change with that. So going on to another subject, I want to know about how we first. I think it's good because I remember certain things.
Yes,
right?
I remember certain things as well.
Creams, a lot, right? But I want to understand, like, what do you remember from? Because I obviously know who I am. Well, I didn't know who I was then. Yeah. I know. What was
What did I first think about it? Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I would say that when we first met in the airport, straight away that I could tell that you were larger than life. I think I heard you before I saw you.
Okay.
And then we had a laugh.
Yeah.
And in the airport around, you just made me laugh straight away. Yeah. And I think when we actually went, it was Norway, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was Norway, yeah. And we had a life experience that, I think we both, I can't say that I'd ever done something like that before, so I don't know if you had. But I just found you so warm. You weren't somebody that had lots of airs and graces. You were very straightforward, funny, a bit of a looker,
Take that. But yeah.
But I just think that we gelled really quickly straight away. And I think because you're so funny, you make people laugh all the time. without knowing it. I don't know, but and then when we went on the skidoos, we went on the skidoos, and I was expecting somebody to be right, wanting to race me.
Yeah.
And every time I turned around, there was you at the back, driving Miss Daisy, and I don't think you went faster than 20 miles an hour. Maybe not.
No.
But you had a look of fear. I'll never forget. So that's a lasting memory. I think when we then sat down to eat in the chalets and stuff, and Gentle Ben was put in front of us to eat, I think we both were a bit, I don't really want to go there.
No.
I think I don't know if you remember the bear prints outside the chalet and stuff like that. Do you remember that at all?
No.
I didn't know if that was you doing that to scare me. But the overriding, the memories I have of that time of us is so much laughter. And, even when we were trying to catch fish in the middle of the... I think we then had to...
Steal a fish. Which
I then took a photo of to make sure that, we had that memory forever. But it was just laughter, just complete laughter, and from start to finish. And again, when you talk about brand and your name, I think everybody knows you. Everybody knows you for making them laugh. Everybody knows you for being good at what you do. And actually, that's why I think you've done so well in your career, because people respect you. They know when you talk, you're talking from a place of honesty, and they buy into you. They buy into Karlton. And they don't just say, they don't just listen to you and then go off and do something else. You drive people to want to do better for you, because you're such a, you're a good guy, basically. You're one of the good ones.
I always, and this is being honest, I always thought like an imposter.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's horrendous, because I used to walk on, and I think I have done well for myself now. I think I'm at a decent level now, and it's not to say like the people that the new starters, if you want to call it that, but I've done all of the graft.
You have.
Right from new business to all the way through, and I haven't got any degrees, I haven't got anything like that, but I've just been me a little bit. It's taken a little bit longer, I would say, than certain people, but by being me has enabled me to get to where I've got to. I don't know if you do know this, I'm maybe going over. So from my career, I only got the job at Schneider ABC because of you guys. There's people like Dave Sutton, yourself, all these people rang David and said, you need to give this guy an interview. You guys have enabled me to grow so much in the IT channel. And like I said, if it wasn't for there's people at Midwich, and I'd always be grateful for them, but also people at Misco that had my back and sponsored me in my first part of my career, which was externally facing. I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
I don't think many people do when they start.
But do you know what I mean? It was like proper new business, and going into a company of that size with a smiley face, looking back, you're like, oh, this should be okay. This should be okay. So
I think everybody, when they start, in a, whether it be a senior role or any role, you're going to question yourself a lot when you first start, because you've got nothing to benchmark yourself, because you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
But you just have to have that faith, and you did, because you were right for the role. You worked your ass off for it, and you deservedly got it, because you worked so hard and people believed in you. That's what I was saying. People believe in you and what you say and the relationships you built. And now they've extended across, obviously, the wider channel because of who you are.
Has there anyone that's made an impact on you, and I suppose personally and professionally? This is not for a shout out, but I just want to understand the people that helped you along the way. Yeah,
I think there's been a lot of people. I think, I'll go back to Ingram's initially, because that was when it all really started for me. So Matt Sanderson, again, I'll reference him, but I remember he took me into a room once and said, this isn't the only thing he ever said to me, but don't try and fill the silence. Because I know that when we used to have meetings, because he used to be my head of category, that if the room was silent, I'd feel the need to fill the room with noise and words. But he always used to give me real, good nuggets of a sort of advice, as it were. I think Julian Thompson, Mike Farrer, these guys are still at Ingram's, but they were quite influential because they gave me opportunities, they gave me advice, and I worked there for a long time. I think when I moved to Misco, Mark Rosendale, we all know Mark Rosa. He's retired now, but he saw the opportunity. He gave me the opportunity to get into Misco. And Donovan Hutchison gave me the opportunity at PCM. I know that there were other people that he could have taken on, but he got me to that place where I got vendor director on my CV, and that for me was that recognition of all the hard work I'd done. So, but there's still lots of people I work with today that there's so many people to call out. I think for me it's a combination of the advice and the support and the belief they had in me, and knowing that I could eventually do that, because at the beginning of my career I didn't have that confidence. So I'm going to regret not saying all the names, but there's probably too far to mention. But I think those guys have probably been quite influential, I think, and supportive throughout my career.
A big part of this podcast is talking to people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, about, I think, when we see someone like yourself in a leadership role, or myself, you don't need to have everything built around you to get to there. What do you think is important for you when you're looking at people around your business, or if you are in those processes of meeting or hiring people?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think, there's so much that has changed over the last few years in IT, but I think the one thing that remains constant is that when you are looking for people to join a team, you need people that have got the hunger and the passion, because everything else can be taught or learned, right? You can learn, you can go on, there's so much online stuff that people can read around public cloud or, on-prem, whatever they're coming to do. But if they don't have the will to evolve, or the will to change, or the will to learn, or the will to be able to, it's still all about people at the end of the day. We know that IT is evolving, and there's so much out there in terms of, what does the next 10 years look like? But within this channel, it's still about people. You still need to be able to engage, build relationships, negotiate. So when you're looking for people the people that I have in, I've got a small team, there's only 3 of us sort of thing, but they're all people that are really hardworking. They're really determined to do well for them, but also well for the business. I think if you work for a business that believes in you, you want to do well for that. And I think Insight promotes a good culture in terms of, the culture for Insight is hunger, heart and harmony. And we all try and live and breathe that. So when you're trying to bring people into the business, you want to make sure that they are going to understand, and work to that culture, as it were. So, but I think you've got young people, you've got 20, 25-year-olds coming into this industry that, they'll come into it now, but nothing changes. They still need to work hard. That doesn't change. And I think after COVID, I think things were different, and it's been difficult for us to get to a place where people are comfortable doing that. Some people still want to go to the office every day, which is great. But coming back to that family life, people want that work-life balance now, and they can get that because they are working from home and they can pick up their kids and they can go to the gym, whatever. But it doesn't change anything. The business still got targets to hit. So you have to make sure that you're committed to, if you are working from home, that you're able to be motivated, self-motivated, and still deliver for the business. Because hybrid working, I don't think, we know that's not going anywhere now. That's here to stay. So you've got to find people that want to be in your team that are able to do that without being micromanaged, because micromanaged doesn't work anyway.
No.
So, some organisations will insist on working from the office every day, and if that works for them, that's great, because they're hiring people that are happy to do that.
Yeah.
But if you are, across the country in terms of locations, you don't always have that luxury. So, being able to work with people, being able to be self-motivated and hardworking, and getting on with people, I think doesn't really change from what it was 20 years ago.
You're seeing a different mix of people coming in all the time. Yeah. But I think, again, this podcast is one, understanding where people is, but it's almost a big driver in it is, from my perspective, I don't hire on your sex or your colour of your skin. No. And it's not that I don't care, I do care. But for me, it's more around getting that right person, getting the person that actually cements the team or adds value. Or I think historically, from a hiring purpose, I think it sometimes detracts from the person. So, and you do hear now sometimes it for maybe a black guy or woman or whatever, have you got the job because of that? But I think within Schneider, for me personally, I think they've taught me so much and given me so much opportunity. Before Schneider, I was a removal man, like in Midwich there. So I've not had that. So for me, it also is a great place to.
And how long have you been there now?
9 years.
You say it?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's gone like that, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I've known you now for 15.
15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
15 years.
long years. Long years. You still got my
Oh,
belt.
look at those photos. But I've still get what?
My belt and my hoodie. Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know where they are, if I'm honest.
She got them on your wall, mounted somewhere.
Framed, yeah.
Framed. How would someone describe you? If you had 3 words to describe you, what would it be?
God, now you put me on the spot. In a professional, personal way.
Let's give 3 professional and 3 personal.
Okay, so professional, I'd say hardworking is one word, right?
Yeah, we'll give you that. Yeah.
Hardworking. I don't want to be bubbly. I know I'm bubbly because I've been told that, but I try and keep that. And it's not a persona.
Yeah.
I'd say because I think you have to remain bubbly, because if you're not bubbly and you're morose, or you're dragged down by the challenges of work, it just makes everything so much more difficult. Hardworking, bubbly, and not challenging, but I can challenge.
Yeah.
So I like to challenge, but I think I haven't done so much of that over the last couple of years. But to be challenging in a business, to be asking questions, to understand the narrative, to make sure that I used to do it in Ingrams a lot, where we'd have team meetings and it'd always be me putting my hand up, because you want to make sure that if you don't understand what they're trying to tell you, you have to question why. So it's questioning why, I think.
Yeah.
So that could be 3 words. Personally, bubbly, stubborn, loyal.
The big one for you would be loyal for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think loyalty is a big thing. I mean, that actually crosses over for professional and personal, I think. But I think loyalty is a big thing. People go through tough times in life. People go through tough times personally and professionally. I think loyalty in terms of friendships, or however that friendships come about through work or whatever, loyalty is a big thing for me. Really big.
What would you say your main successes are?
In, again, both, well, professionally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say it's, again, difficult, because every time I got a promotion, so, when I started at Ingrams, for example, I started as a buyer, and, I then worked hard and I went for the business manager role, and I got the business manager role, and I worked really hard and I got the head of category role. For me, getting vendor director on my CV was a big success for me, because all those years, up to that point, I mean, that was 7 years ago, up until that point, I'd been solidly working. I'd been solidly grafting. I'd been, doing all the events, doing all the nights away from home, staying late, going above and beyond, in my opinion. People that, manage me or work with me might tell you different, but that's how I saw it. So getting to that level of vendor director, it just meant that proved it was all worthwhile. And I think that would be a big success. I'd say the other success is managing people that do well, because when you manage people, the whole point of managing people is that you can manage yourself out of a job. But if you see them develop and you see them blossom, and you've had a part to play in that, it's like one of the guys that I work with at Insight, and I've seen him evolve over the last 3 years. He's confident, he's always been good at his job, but his confidence levels have boosted. I wouldn't say it's all down to me, but if you give somebody a platform to be able to, feel confident, understand their own abilities, so that if you're constantly telling them, giving them the good and the bad feedback, but if you start to make somebody feel confident about what they're doing is the right thing, that you just start to see them flourish. And it's all about give and take. I've always been somebody that, I will give you as much as you need or as much as you want from me, but I need it back as well.
Yes.
So I've always worked on a give and take sort of management style. I don't even like the word manager anymore, to be honest, but when you work with people in that hierarchy, support them, enable them, empower them, and see them flourish, to me that's and I've seen lots of people that I've worked with in my career. There's people at Ingrams that I used to manage that are back at Ingrams doing really good stuff and stuff. So that gives me an element of success more than anything, really.
I feel it's weird to say when I'm a manager of people, because that's all I ever wanted to be.
Yeah, I know.
I think that when I became a dad, for me that was like, I get so much out of, because I used to be really, I still am salesy, but I used to be really, really on the bottom with that. But now actually, when someone in my team or someone does great, or someone gets a promotion, or they come out of the team and go into something, I'm like,
Feel like dad.
Yeah, a proud father
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And it's really weird, but I think that's just me getting old.
Yeah, there is an element to that.
Obviously, I used to have hair, now I'm not. Cheers, thanks.
It's been a very long time you haven't had hair.
Yes, very long time. Thanks for shoving that in there. But what I mean is, you get different joy out of your role as you get older, and you look at the bigger picture. So it's almost like, and I suppose it moves on nicely. Like, what's your legacy? What do you feel is important?
Well, I think like I said, been in the industry for 30 years now, and I'm approaching an age where you do start to think about what you've achieved and what you could have done better. But I do like to think that my legacy would have been that anybody that has worked for me, in a management, say in a management style, where they've been part of my team, have said that Louise enabled me to move on to the next level of my career. Louise enabled me to get this promotion. She enabled me to move out of her team, even though she didn't want to lose me, because she knew that moving on to the next thing would be better for me. So I think my legacy hopefully will be empowering people to do better in their own careers. And I'm not saying that that's always happened, but that's always been my philosophy, is that if you have a team, your job is to make sure that they succeed. So I'd like to think that in all the years I've managed people, there's people that have done really well, and that's not necessarily down to me, but it's giving them the freedom to, or the confidence to know that they can move on to the next level. They work really hard, and they're rewarded because they are, and I think about my managers that I've had over the years. That's what a lot of them have done for me. So I'd like to think that that would be part of my legacy, and somebody that was, liked in the industry. I think, like you, I've never tried to be something that I'm not. I think life's too short, as we know.
Yeah.
And I think if we can go around having a bit of laughter, having a bit of fun, smiling along the way. Don't get me wrong. We all work for corporate organisations that ultimately need to turn, a number, and they need you to perform to enable them to do that. But if you can do that smiling, and if you can do it laughing, whilst managing the stresses of that 9-to-5 job, then it just makes life a little bit easier, I think. Don't get me wrong, life can be really hard at times. So, when you're working for a living, because not all of us, we don't have the luxury of not having the ability to do that. You just want to make sure that you go through it as making the most of it as possible, I'd say.
What would you say to your younger self?
Have more confidence. I've always second-guessed myself. You said earlier about the imposter syndrome. I think every time, even walk into a room of people. So it's funny, the narrative, how the dynamic has changed. 30 years ago, talking as a woman in IT, and don't want to make a big thing of it, but there are times when you'd walk into a room and it's all men, and that still happens now. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm not saying that's not that's not still valid, but I think I was somebody that would question my ability, or question whether I, even though I challenged a lot, I'd still walk out of there questioning myself. So I'd definitely say be more confident. Trust your gut. I think a lot of the time, sometimes I wouldn't say anything and somebody else would say it. I'd be like, I should have said it because I knew that was my gut. So trust your gut and be more confident. And I still think that as a woman in 30 years ago in IT, you were still fighting to be heard a little bit. Now I work for an organisation that there was a lot of very senior women that are, role models, if you like, because they are very senior positions, and they've got that through hard work, not because they're female. They've got that because they've been in the business for a long time. They've got lots of experience. But if you look at other organisations in the channel, there are very senior women that have worked really hard to get there. But it should still be that person gets the job because they're right for the job, not because they're a certain gender or a certain colour or whatever. So I think, but for me personally, I think trust my gut and be more confident would have been the two things I'd tell my younger self, I think. What would you tell your younger self?
I would say live while you're living.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in life I get caught up with having that amount of money in the bank, making sure that's correct, making sure when tomorrow's not given. And I think when I got my illness and bits and pieces, I think it sort of changed the dynamic massively. And I started thinking about little things like watching my children sleep. That sounds really basic, but watching your children sleep and just lie there, and it's so much peace.
Yeah.
And when they
in
say,
the moment.
this is really sad because I watch so many children's films, but like Matilda, they talk about the noise, like the turning of a page of a book. Yeah. Such a lovely you sit there and listen to your children read, and I think taking time, and like I said, you've got to live in the now. That's the main message I would tell my younger self. And yeah, I've had challenges, as you know, parents and everything from growing up in where I grew up is not to get to where I am now. I don't think is the norm.
But from my point of view, that's, you know, like you said, being a role model, it's not just for, you know, people coming into the industry. It's for people that don't think they've got a chance to have the life that you've got because from their, you know, from their backgrounds, whatever, they don't see it as an option. But you're a role model that is able to say, it doesn't matter what background you're from. You know, I did college, but I didn't do A-levels. You know, that wasn't through not wanting to do them. I actually was in the process of doing them. But A-levels can be important for certain things. But I think in certain industries, not just ours, if you are working your arse off and you're displaying to your business that you have the desire and the intent to do well, they'll support you.
Yeah.
I think if you're somebody that comes in and just assumes that they're going to give the God-given right to get a promotion without doing the hard graft, so to your point, you know, you're a role model that not only can, you know, create a role model for people coming in the industry, but for people that don't think they've got a chance.
That's partly why I do this. Is because I want to show a lot of people from a cultural background or diverse equality, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying I'm top of all tops and all of that sort of stuff, but I think I'm fortunate to get to it, and a lot of luck as well. But some people around me, yourself included, that have enabled me to get to where I am now. But I think that, again, from me, if you ask my team, what are the most important things? And that's kindness, loyalty, but also driven. And people have told me a lot of things along the way, but I think if I stay true to that, as a millennial, sorry, throwing that in there, I think...
Oh, you live ahead. I don't know if I'm a millennial.
I say it because I know I am just, but I think we've all got something to share, and that would be, and I might repeat that over and over again, but my legacy, one is my children, but also is the impact I make on their life, and the impacts I make on, I want people to go back when I'm not here to be like, oh, do you remember Karlton? Do you remember when he did this? Or do you remember when it is that? Do you know what I mean? That's what my little footprint.
I can guarantee there'll be a lot of people out there that will have a lot of those "do you remember when" Karlton moments, because there will be a lot of them.
A lot of them. We can't talk on the podcast about them, but
not all of them, no.
No. Is there anything else you want to?
No, I just like I said, I'm quite honoured. I think I've told you that you want me to be part of this process, because you're, like I said, there's not many people in this industry, for me personally, that leave an imprint on me. Really, there is. Don't get me wrong, but there's the imprint you've left on me is quite special. So it's been a pleasure being invited to talk this through. Also quite nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I'm still sat in this chair and I'm nervous anyway.
No, but I just thank you because it's been really special.
Thanks for being there.
No, thank you.